So welcome to the very first video interview for Online Personals Watch. I'm joined today by Al Cuccinelli, who is the CMO of Procall. And so welcome to the interview, Al.
Thanks, Mark. Nice to be with you.
I want to ask you, first of all, Al, what's your background? What's your personal background?
Well, years ago I started in the airline industry, and I started in sales. And along the way, I realized that the company that I was working with didn't have a very good balance sheet, and so I started to look elsewhere, and I got involved in a call center, selling software into the call center. And I did this for like 15 or 20 years, and in the late 90s, got involved in call center outsourcing. And so I started again just sales, going out and getting clients for outsourcers who at the time were focused primarily in the United States. So this was really before it was very popular to outsource outside to offshore to India or the Philippines. So at that time, primarily call center outsourcers were located in Omaha or in the Midwest, places like that. So I started there, and then joined Procall, I think 2006. I signed up with Procall.
And tell us more about Procall. What is Procall's founding story? How long have they been in existence, and how did they start out?
Well, Procall actually was founded by Craig Harry, who uses the name CH. And he's a brilliant entrepreneur. And in the, I guess, early 90s it was, he started to do these infomercials to market products. And he's got a brilliant marketing strategy. But he started that and needed a way to take orders and also a way to provide customer service to his clients. And he ended up starting his own call center in South Florida, in Boca Raton. And I guess in, I think it was 96 or so, he started to look in the nearshore area. So in Latin America, and he came across Costa Rica, which at the time was a perfect place for outsourcing a call center. And he opened up a center in San Jose. And at that time, it was his own center. And he soon realized people came knocking on the door saying, hey, can you help me with my customer service and my orders? Can you take my sales orders? So it kind of evolved into where it was, where it is today. But it started initially as a need for his own business, and it grew to something like now we have 9 centers across the globe.
And how do you define them? Are they offshore, or are these outsourcing centers?
Well, we use the term nearshore because they're in, we have Dominican Republic and Colombia, Guyana, Panama, of course, and all of that is nearshore. So the term evolved because when outsourcing became popular, centers were in India and the Philippines, and that was, it's a day in flying. You're traveling for a day to get to India or to the Philippines. And this was when the nearshore market became hot, it was an alternative. So you could get there out of Miami. All of these destinations are 3 hours, which is ideal, and they're close. It's they speak similar culture, and of course they speak English, and it's a much better option than India or the Philippines. And of course there wasn't that say backlash, at least in the United States, against India, the Indian call centers, which perhaps we were had too much of them too soon, and there was a tremendous backlash against some of the larger corporations. Dell, HP, and so forth, for having call centers in India. Many people just said, "No way, let me call someone that's in the United States."
And how long have you been serving the internet dating industry?
Actually, our first client came on board in 2008. In September, it was 2008. Actually, and that client that's one of the top, I think, top 5 in the world.
Yeah.
And had them ever since, and we've expanded with them and added more languages, and it's been a good relationship.
And how many languages do you support with them and in total?
We have, I think it's 10 or 11 languages, of course, English and Spanish, but also French and Portuguese, both European and Brazilian. Dutch, German, Swedish, Japanese, Tagalog, which is the Filipino language. I'm probably missing one or two there, but we have the center in Panama is the center that supports the internet dating industry. And there's the agents there. We have a great pool to work from. It's, I guess, because of the banking industry that's there. I think it's the third largest banking industry in the world. And then, of course, also the canal. There's a lot of people that speak many languages, and we're finding that most of them are multilingual. They speak at least 3 languages. So we're fortunate that the center there worked out very nicely for us.
And what exactly do you do as regards customer service? What elements of customer service do you specialize in?
Well, we have, of course, we're mentioning the internet dating, but we also have customer service and help desk programs for telecommunications, banking industry, all different kinds of industries. Some of our clients are household names like AT&T or Comcast, Sprint. And we do a traditional customer service with help desk. We have a number of technology companies that we support on VoIP companies. And so we provide first level and second levels, first tier, second tier help desk support for them. So we have that, and we also do inbound sales, order taking. We even have some telemarketing that we do as well. And
of course,
for the internet dating industry, beyond the traditional voice inbound calls, we do a lot of email, profile reviews, we do picture reviews, video reviews, blogs, all of those things.
Gotcha. And of course, the million-dollar question is, I'm sure you've done ROI studies with clients at this stage.
Yes.
What kind of real savings, in reality, what kind of savings can you offer internet dating companies by outsourcing to Procall? What realms of percentage-wise can you save them?
That's a great question. It's usually the first question people ask. But I would say, on the low side, it's got to be 30%. And that would depend on where they're located. So if the center is in the United States, maybe in the Midwest, it's somewhere between 30 and 50%. The 50% would be if the call center is located somewhere in the San Francisco area, New York area, Boston area, where they're paying much more. But the real value, let's say, the value proposition is not only in the savings, but also in terms of the lower attrition rates. Call centers in the nearshore area are prime jobs. They're great jobs for people to have. We provide great benefits. People tend to stay with us for years. In fact, I visited the Dominican Republic recently, and that center started in 2003, I believe. And there are agents there that have been there from the very beginning. And you'd find that. I think if to use an expression that I've heard CH use is, if they could put it into their will, they would take the job, put it into their will. Because they love the job. And what that means is they can stay with us. And they become better at their jobs as time goes on, and they become the experts, even better than, say, an employee of the internet dating company or customer service, if we're doing it for Sprint. They become the experts because they're there so long. They're consistent. So attrition is very important in creating knowledgeable employees, but it also is a way of saving money because you have a need when someone leaves, you have to search for a replacement. You have to train them, and then you have the learning curve, ramp up time while they become proficient at their work. So all of that is costly. So to keep a low attrition rate, and to give you an idea, some of the outsourcing centers here in the United States and some of the call centers run over 100%, and some of the outsources actually in Florida, I've heard the number of 200.
Yeah.
In Panama, as an example, we're running between 10 and 15% attrition.
Great. So that really dovetails nicely into quality, because that's the other thing that people think about as they're considering outsourcing. Sure. How do you measure and maintain quality?
Quality is twofold. We have typically first we have our own quality assurance department. And the folks there are chartered with answering, listening to calls, monitoring calls, on average 10 calls for each agent on a weekly basis. And so they score them based on typically with one of the clients that we talked about here in the internet dating world, they do 20 questions. They look at 20 different things. Did they greet the client or the customer properly? Did they respond to this, and this? So they go through a questionnaire and they rank the agent. And that's in terms of, this is an inbound call. But we also do the same thing with emails. The same kind of things, with various questions looking at different things that the client is asking for. So that's how we do it on our end. But I think to tie it all together, we have calibration sessions on a weekly basis. Of course, we don't go through as many calls and emails, but we do a random selection and the client picks them, where we listen to the same calls and review the same emails. And we compare notes. And the intent there is to make certain that we're on the same page, that we understand what they want and we're scoring it properly together.
Yeah.
So it's
Right.
And we have, that's for quality standards, and that would be, let's say, the tone of the agent's voice, all of those kinds of things. But we also have, of course, service goals, service objectives that we need to meet every day, and even within the day. So, for example, we have targets of average speed of answer. So when a call comes in, we need to answer that call within the first 20 seconds. Or if an email comes in, and of course there are different email response rates based on different queues, let's say, that the client would have. They may have different membership levels, and say gold or platinum, they may require a response within the first 15, 20 minutes or something like that, and others might be an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours.
Sure.
So the quality is looked at in terms of audio, but also in terms of how the client perceives us as well.
Would you say the dating industry is a more challenging industry than other clients, or about the same as other industries that you serve?
I think the difference there is with the internet dating industry, they have probably as much or probably more non-phone related work than they do phone calls. So you'd have emails, the profile reviews, blogs, picture reviews, things like that are probably maybe 60 or 70% of the business versus the inbound calls. And within that, within each of those, so emails, I mentioned you have, say, a platinum or a gold level, or say a generic member, a regular membership. Those would have different queues and they'd have different response rates, as I mentioned. So with the maybe the platinum, we need to respond in 15 minutes, or with the gold, it might be 2 hours. Now, with each of those, it requires people to monitor those. Our operations desk is constantly looking at these queues and balancing that out. So looking at, say, a particular language, looking at French, they might have a particular queue in French, and we'd have to look at how is that queue versus the client's goal, and maybe we need to look at moving an agent from the Italian queue over if the Italian queue doesn't have enough call volume in it or workload, and maybe the French does. Yep. So the balancing act is unique, say, to the internet industry.
And do you have dedicated agents by company?
Yes. All of them is, we work 100% like that, by dedicated agent, yes.
Great. Why?
It gives us, we don't want to share information, of course, and the agent is dedicated to one program. They become comfortable with it. There's no confusion over what's acceptable for a profile review on this company versus another company.
Yeah.
It's just much better, works out much better that way.
Great. All right. So is there anything in particular that amuses you about the internet dating industry? Anything different that, if you're talking to a friend over a drink, what would you tell them that most amused you about the dating industry?
Well, I'd say when you talk about profile reviews and things like that, you oftentimes people say things that you wouldn't expect in the profile reviews, and even in blogs for that matter too. I mean, that's why we're there to look at these things. But as a moderator, they say things, especially the profiles. They say things that oftentimes make your hair stand up, which you wouldn't hear typically in a phone call. But with the profile reviews, or sometimes even photographs. The photographs that they send in are, you might see a photo of, I'd say Robert De Niro. It's and the guy is saying that this is, he's Robert De Niro, the photo. So those kinds of things, I think, are hilarious.
Mm. So you've been to the internet dating conferences,
Yes,
and
sure.
how can people get hold of you? How can they find you?
Well, the website for the company is, of course, www.procall.com, Procall.com, and my personal email is al@procall.com.
Great.
And my phone number, direct line to the office here, is 561-416-2020.
Great. Al Cuccinelli, you're the CMO of Procall. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mark.